Well, hello, Be Free friends. I hope you all are doing well this week. Fall is in full swing. School is back in session. The Patriots have already lost a game. Community groups have started up, and we have launched a new teaching series on Sunday mornings, just starting last Sunday, The Gospel According to Mark. So as we head into this fall season, I want to share a few thoughts with you about routines and worship. First, routines. Routines can be wonderfully helpful and also detrimental, both helpful and detrimental. Routines are helpful because they form us, they shape us, and they really help us be able to engage in life without being so taxed mentally. Remember when you first learned to drive as a teenager? It took a lot of thought, mental energy, to remember which side was the brake, which side was the gas. You had to think about that action. But over time, it just becomes second nature. You don't have to think about it. It's a routine. And routines work that way. Or maybe it's even with exercise. At first, when you begin a new exercise routine, it takes a lot of thought and even willpower to really engage in it. But over time, it does become easier. Routines are helpful in that way. But routines can also be detrimental, because the same process by which we are no longer mentally taxed can make us not as thoughtful about the actions we are taking. So routines can just become rituals, thoughtless rituals. Spiritual practices that at one time were incredibly life-giving can actually become burdensome over time when they just become routines. So I want to remind us why we gather on Sunday mornings and just how significant that time really is in God's economy. So 3 reasons why we gather every week on Sunday for a worship gathering. Now, first, we gather every week on a Sunday morning to celebrate the resurrected King. We gather to celebrate that Jesus rose. The first Christians were Jewish, and they had always gathered on Saturday for the Sabbath. And they switched to gathering on Sunday because they were marking Sunday as the day that Jesus rose. So every Sunday is kind of like a mini Easter. We are reminding ourselves every Sunday of this event that happened in history, that Jesus entered our world, that he lived, he died, he rose, he ascended, and he is coming again. Despite all that may have happened during the week, this is reason for great joy. And we need to remind ourselves weekly of what Jesus has accomplished in his resurrection. And we also, as we gather, are encountering him. The resurrected King is alive, and he's meeting with his people. I love it's actually the old King James translation of one of the Psalms, where it says that God inhabits the praises of his people. And somehow in the praises of God's people, God is present. And so we are meeting to worship and to meet with the resurrected King. A second reason we gather weekly for a worship gathering is to be formed as apprentices of the King. We're going to talk about this coming Sunday, that this is Jesus' mission, is to call us to be disciples or apprentices, that through song, through prayer, through teaching, through fellowship, we are being formed, we are being shaped, we are learning, we are growing. And so the goal is that we would be able to engage in all spheres of life, family, work, school, community life, as followers of Jesus, as his apprentices, becoming like him in all these different arenas. So we gather to learn to live as his apprentices. And then thirdly, we gather to encourage one another in faith. Now, I really hope that the worship gatherings are encouraging and beneficial for you personally. But more than that, I'm hoping that you will be an encouragement to others. We gather for others. It's encouraging to walk in a room and see other people worshiping Jesus. Your presence is encouraging. Your voice in song is encouraging. Your words asking people how they're doing are encouraging. So we are gathering to encourage one another in faith because we need one another. We can't do this alone. So we gather to celebrate the resurrected King. We gather to be formed as apprentices of the King. And we gather to encourage one another in faith. And this is a significant opportunity we have every Sunday to be about those 3 purposes. And I want to read you just a quote about how significant this opportunity is. I've been reading a book recently, Invitation to a Journey by Robert Mulholland. It's a spiritual classic. And he writes this about worship. I'll read you a paragraph. He says, "Worship is the practice of regularly seeking to bring the complete focus of our being on God. It is the discipline of returning to the true center of our individual and corporate existence as God's people. The pressures of life and the assaults of the fallen world constantly blur our focus and tend to shift us away from our center in God. Worship is the means by which we recover our focus and return to our center. The quality and consistency of our worship will determine how well we are able to live Christ-centered lives in the world." That last sentence there, the quality and consistency of our worship will determine how well we are able to live Christ-centered lives in the world. I want to encourage you to really lean into the quality and consistency of your worship on Sunday mornings. In terms of quality, come prepared to worship. I don't mean you're spending, an hour in prayer before the service, but I do encourage you to pray on your way in. Ask God to be at work in the service, in your life, in the lives of people that are coming. Come prepared, expecting to meet with God. Also, I encourage you to come on time. I know that's a little bit of a joke around here. We tend to start our services just a little bit late. This is a forewarning here. We are actually looking to move our start time to 10 o'clock. Believe it or not, we are going to be moving that start time to promptly at 10. And so I encourage you to show up a few minutes early. That allows you to get settled, get a cup of coffee, connect with others. Also, most guests arrive early. And so when a new visitor comes and there's no one around to greet them, it can be a little bit awkward for them. So I also encourage you to come a few minutes early for hospitality's sake for our visitors. Also, in terms of quality of worship, come prepared to engage holistically. Mind, body, emotions. God wants all of us in our worship to be engaged. So consider how God's looking to stretch you holistically in your worship. Then, secondly, about the consistency of worship. I encourage you to prioritize the worship gathering of the church on Sunday mornings. Now, not every week are you going to walk out the doors and feel spiritually transformed. Some weeks will feel more routine. That's just the way of things. But transformation happens over the course of weeks, months, and years, rarely just one day. Transformation is more like water running over a rock. Over the years, water can shape a rock through constant motion. One day of heavy rain won't shape a rock, but years upon years of erosion do. And the worship life of the church is like that. Over our years, our lives are shaped as we prioritize the worshiping life of God's community. So I look forward to this fall season ahead with you. I pray that we get to together celebrate the resurrected King, be formed as his apprentices, and encourage one another in faith. I look forward to seeing you this Sunday. God's best to you.